In today's deep dive, we're exploring a small but historically powerful coin. The 1967 Elizabeth II George Threepence of the United Kingdom. At first glance, it may look like just another old British coin. But behind its modest size lies a fascinating story of monarchy, national identity, economic transition, and the final chapter of a centuries-old currency system that would soon disappear forever. To truly understand this coin, we need to step back into the reign of Elizabeth II. By 1967, she had been on the throne for 15 years, guiding Britain through a period of modernization, cultural change, and economic challenges. Her portrait on the coin reflects not just a ruler, but an era. One that stood at the edge of a monetary revolution known as decimalization. The threepence, often called the threepenny bit, had already become iconic in British daily life. For generations, it was used for small purchases, sweets, newspapers, bus fares, and was especially recognizable because of its unusual shape. Unlike round coins, the threepence was famously 12-sided, making it instantly identifiable by touch in a pocket or purse. The 1967 issue would become particularly important because it marked the final year of production before the United Kingdom prepared to shift to a decimal currency system in 1971. This means the 1967 threepence is one of the last representatives of the old pound SD system, pounds, shillings, and pence that had been in use for centuries. Let's talk about the design. On the obverse, you'll find the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II. The effigy used in 1967 was designed by Mary Gillick, and it shows a youthful, uncrowned queen. Around her portrait are the Latin inscriptions Elizabeth II Dei Grazia Regina FD, which translate to Elizabeth II. By the grace of God, Queen, Defender of the Faith. This Latin inscription is not merely decorative. It reflects a long tradition of British coinage that connects modern Britain to its monarchical and religious history. Every word carries centuries of continuity, linking Elizabeth II back through a lineage of monarchs who used similar titles on their coinage, turning the coin over. The reverse features a crown portcullis with chains. This symbol is strongly associated with the Palace of Westminster and the British Parliament. The portcullis has long been a symbol of authority and governance, representing the strength and continuity of the British state. The inclusion of the portcullis design emphasizes that coins are not just currency. They are miniature ambassadors of national identity. Every time someone spent a threepence, they were handling a tiny piece of British symbolism, monarchy on one side, Parliament on the other. Now let's discuss the composition. The 1967 threepence was made of nickel brass, giving it that distinctive golden color. This material had been used since the 1930s, replacing earlier silver compositions. The change reflected economic realities and the need for more durable, cost-effective materials during the 20th century. Point 1. Fascinating detail is the coin's weight and shape. The 12-sided design wasn't just for aesthetics. It was practical. It prevented confusion with other coins and made the denomination accessible even in low light or for those relying on touch recognition. It was a clever design solution. Long before modern accessibility standards were discussed, the year 1967 itself was a remarkable time in Britain. The country was experiencing cultural transformation, the height of the swinging 60s. London was a global center of music, fashion, and art. While this coin circulated quietly in pockets and tills, Britain was redefining its modern identity. Politically and economically, however, the country was facing financial pressures. The British pound was devalued in November 1967 under Prime Minister Harold Wilson. This event significantly impacted the economy and adds historical depth to coins dated that same year. Because 1967 was the final year of pre-decimal threepence production, Large quantities were minted to meet demand before the currency transition. This means the coin is relatively common today. But its historical importance far outweighs its monetary value. For collectors, condition is everything. A circulated 1967 Threepence may only be worth a small amount above face value. But an uncirculated example with full luster and sharp edges can command significantly higher prices. In the numismatic market, another interesting aspect is how the threepence fit into daily British life. It represented 1/80th of a pound. In today's decimal system, that fraction feels complicated. But at the time it was second nature to British citizens accustomed to pounds, shillings, and pence. The transition to decimal currency in 1971 marked the end of coins like the threepence. After decimal day, the old system was withdrawn, and coins that had been familiar for generations vanished from everyday use almost overnight. This makes the 1967 threepence a symbolic last stand of traditional British coinage. It is a tangible reminder of a system that dated back to medieval times, a direct link to economic structures that shaped Britain's global trade and empire. The portrait of Elizabeth II on the coin also represents continuity amid change. Though the currency system would soon transform, the monarchy remained steady. The Queen's image would continue to appear on decimal coinage for decades. The Mary Gillick portrait itself has become iconic among collectors. It is often regarded as one of the most elegant and youthful depictions of the Queen, used on coinage from 1953 to 1967, before being replaced by a new effigy. In terms of mintage, millions of 1,967 threepence coins were struck at the Royal Mint. Their abundance makes them accessible entry-level pieces for new collectors interested in British numismatics. However, rarity can emerge in unusual conditions, mint errors, off-center strikes, or coins preserved in original mint sets. These variations can significantly increase desirability and value. For historians, the coin represents more than currency. It captures a snapshot of Britain in 1967, balancing tradition and modernity, monarchy and parliament, pre-decimal past and decimal future. There's also nostalgia attached to the threepence. Many older Britons remember receiving them as pocket money or using them in vending machines. The coin's unique shape made it memorable and even beloved. Interestingly, the 12-sided design later influenced the modern decimal 50p coin introduced in 1969. The idea that a coin could be both distinctive and practical carried forward into the new system. When you hold a 1967 threepence, you're holding the end of an era. Within just a few years of its minting, the entire currency framework it belonged to would cease to exist. Collectors today often seek the 1967 issue as part of a complete Elizabeth II pre-decimal set. It serves as the final chapter in a long story that began centuries earlier. From a design perspective, the balance between the Queen's portrait and the portcullis symbol reflects Britain's constitutional monarchy, sovereign on one side, Parliament on the other. The coin's golden color sometimes leads new collectors to mistake it for gold. But it contains no precious metal. Its value lies in history rather than intrinsic metal content. As we reflect on this coin, it becomes clear that numismatics is about storytelling. Each scratch, each worn edge, hints at transactions, hands exchanged, and lives lived during the late 1960s. The 1967 Elizabeth II threepence stands as a bridge between old and new Britain, between imperial currency traditions and a streamlined decimal future. In the world of coin collecting, sometimes the most common coins carry the deepest stories. This small, 12-sided piece of nickel brass is proof of that truth. So next time you come across a 1967 UK threepence, take a closer look. Beyond its modest appearance lies a powerful historical artifact, one that quietly witnessed economic shifts, cultural revolutions, and the steady reign of Queen Elizabeth II. And that is the remarkable story of the 1967 Elizabeth II George Threepence, a tiny coin that marks the closing chapter of one of the world's oldest currency systems and preserves a golden snapshot of Britain on the brink of change.